Welcome to another edition of the Co-ops in the Time of Crisis Conversations series that's being offered by the Canadian Centre for the Study of Co-operatives. I'm Jen Budney and I'm a professional research associate at the Centre, and I am really pleased to have on the other end of the Zoom call, Carol Rollheiser. Am I saying your name correctly?
Rollheiser, yeah, that's right, thanks.
Excellent, good. And she is in Camrose, Alberta at the Wildrose Co-op. She's general manager. So Carol, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. I am the primary shopper in my house, and so I've been really fascinated both professionally and personally on how the co-ops are handling this pandemic. So I wanted to start maybe with you telling me a little bit about your co-op. What's involved at your co-op, what kind of services you offer and products, and a little bit about your community, the community you serve in Camrose.
Sure. So Wildrose Co-op we actually formed in 2007, and it was the merger of Camrose Co-op and Study Co-op. And so we serve quite a large rural community as well as our small urban center in Camrose here, and that's what became quite interesting throughout this whole COVID experience. So we have 3 food stores, Jennifer. We have a food store in Camrose, a food store in Killam, and then just 10 kilometers from Killam in Sedgwick, we have another food store. We also have 2 gas bars, 6 card locks, 3 ag input centers, and a small home and farm center. So, throughout this, we were dealing with a bunch of, diversification has its advantages. Let me say that as outright positive. Thank goodness we weren't into seeding yet, but, that whole side of our business was preparing for what to do if this goes on for any length of time. But the food side of the business was really fast. It was really changing. And so that's where a lot of our energy was spent during that time. So we had sales that were up really high. And then we had other areas such as our gas bars, because of course, when everything got shut down, the vehicles went off the road. And so our gas bar volume and our card lock volume dropped substantially. So then we had to deal with that side of the business as well.
I can imagine. So yeah. Tell me, so you're dealing with a lot of different people and a lot of different groups. Tell me what those first few days or first couple of weeks of the pandemic were like for you.
Well, I was kind of debriefing that with my marketing communications manager, and we were saying how noisy it was. There was a lot of information coming at us really fast, and it started out, okay, where's our pandemic plan and what does it look like? And then it was basically, other than the chain of command, let's throw this in the garbage, because it was coming, we're basically watching everything the government told us to do and Alberta Health Services told us to do and what we had to do at the same time measuring that off with, the number one priority was team member safety and dealing with all those fears. And there was a lot of fear out there from our team members because they were frontline. We had a lot of the public coming back from the US. As we know, in Western Canada, we have a lot of snowbirds. So what that looked like and what kind of risk that was putting our team members in there, as well as some of the public that just weren't sure what to do and were scared themselves. So there was a lot of things going on at that time. Number one priority, again, was to keep those team members safe. And then on top of that was to keep the shelves as full as we could, as the supply chain would allow us to do. So those were the main things we were dealing with for sure. And it became very much what's the next thing to do, and trying to keep the noise out of it, because as quickly we found that our competitors used a lot of, we felt, in our opinion, the competitors were using a lot of this every day there was something in the news that a competitor was doing. And it became, well, are we doing that? And it was like, well, let's take a look at our own situation here and make sure it's the right for the co-op. The other thing that became really apparent, because we are the only food stores in our rural areas, like in Sedgwick and in Killam, the only 10 kilometers apart, and it's the co-op. There's no other food retailers. Those 2 stores pretty much supply food in about a 200-kilometer radius. Oh, wow. And are the main food suppliers, retailers for that whole area. So then it became a realization that what we could do in Camrose, where we also had Walmart and Superstore and Save-On and Safeway, we had to be a little bit different out there and how we handled things, and protected the supply chain out there. So I actually found myself on the call with the mayor of one of those communities to reassure him and helping him reassure his community that the supply chain was intact, that we would make sure there was food on the shelves for our members and his community members, and just we did some joint communication out there to the community as well. So, you know, we were more than just the grocery store. We were the essential service at the time, and that became really an interesting dynamic to running the co-op and the position the co-op holds in those communities as well. So that was quite interesting as well.
Oh, I have so many questions coming out of that, but in terms of supply and your different customer demand in the rural area, I would imagine, but I might be wrong, that if people are driving that far to get to the co-op, they would have been stocking up a ton compared to the city.
Well, fortunately, we didn't find hoarding as much as a lot of people in the stores, right? Like traffic counts were up substantially, you know, whereas maybe those same people would have shopped there, but shopped there over a longer period of time versus, you know, there was, I can't say there was no panic buying, but there was buying in terms of we better get this because we don't know the next time we'll get here. You know, things like maybe you would put a limit, like you may have seen in the cities, you could put limits on things and say, yep, that's good, we could put a limit on things. But that wasn't always reasonable to do there, because you can't put a limit of one on a package of hamburger because they're coming back tomorrow for another package for their family, right? So we had to make a lot of one-off calls and judgment calls based on that community. So a one-size-fits-all policy on a lot of things just didn't apply in those situations. Yeah.
And so with all of this coordination, what role did FCL play in that for you in helping to navigate all the different rules, the rules that were changing every day, or the guidelines that were changing every day, and supply chain issues? Right.
So we were doing a lot on with ourselves because, of course, you know, it's provincial mandated, a lot of it, right? So so we were keeping track of a lot of those things on our own, and then Federated was also being really good at keeping up with everything going on in all three provinces. A lot of the times, because at least fortunate for us, we're big enough that we have the resources to keep track of a lot of those things on our own. But they were really good in following up on like a lot of the government programs that are out there, you know, making sure we had good legal advice in terms of when people were afraid or if they were sick and if they had to be off due to daycare issues, what their resources were. So giving us good information on that, really handling that side of it, because that was also a big part of, you know, it wasn't just about keeping the product on the shelf. It's what do we do with people that can't work due to daycare or not in school, or, you know, and keeping in mind our frontline workers, they can't work from home and still get a paycheck. It's like you're on the till or you're on the floor or you're on the gas pump or you're not. You know, there's no alternative. So we had a lot of good information coming from Federated, from that side of it, to make sure that all our people had the access to at least the programs information that they needed that way. Right. Also, in terms of the supply chain, emails sent out multiple times a day in terms of where things were at, when was coming in, what the service levels were at, when we could expect more of different products, you know, that sort of thing, which is the best they could do because they were at the whim of the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is at the mercy of their suppliers. So, I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air to get that through, but at least we knew we could do our best to kind of know where things were at that way.
And so in terms of staff, then you had those who were working, you had their safety concerns for them, but how many staff did you have that ended up not being able to work due to daycare and school closures?
We were really
health issues.
Yeah, good question. We were really fortunate that we had a few that could work for home. Like one of the things we did was to protect payroll and to protect our money going in the bank so we could pay our suppliers and get all our deposits. And we did have some of our administration start to work from home just to make sure that, you know, we could make sure everybody got paid if it got really bad, right? So we had that, but other than that, we had probably at any one time, because we had people that had been traveling during the beginning, so we had some of them that had to self-quarantine. I think the most we ever had off was under 10 at any one time, you know. And if someone was very fearful, we just said, yeah, you need to go, you know, like go do what you have to do, and we go from there. But I'm so impressed with our team as a whole. Even though some of them were scared, they said, no, we're here to help, and, you know, and productive and busy, and, you know, in good, you know, good humor most of the time, and, you know, dealt with some of the more difficult times with a lot of grace, I can say. Absolutely.
That's great. And then in terms of consumers, customers, and members, what kinds of concerns were you hearing from them, and what did you have to do to meet their new needs?
Well, there was a lot of people that were afraid of the people that were hoarding. We had customers that were concerned, if I go back to Killam and Sedgwick in our small towns again, that people were coming from the cities to get groceries there because they couldn't get supply in Red Deer. We had people coming, you know, we had a couple of issues where, you know, really what the real story was, we had people that were coming to support their parents or their elderly folks that were still living independently to make sure they had supplies, and the locals were afraid that, you know, they were coming to get their groceries, kind of thing. So we were able to address some of those issues and kind of calm the waters where be. People were, you know, fearful. They were fearful about the number of people in stores, you know, but what we did a lot of communication through our own social media and through our website. We did the first 2 weeks solid of lots of COVID information on what was going on in our stores and just keeping that up. And then we were able to bring that back around to what was going right and into a positive note. And what we really noticed is that our followings really upticked during those times. And it was, you know, it was like they could count on us as a source of trusted information, whereas I'm not sure they were going to one of our competitors necessarily for some of that information, right? So we got a lot of information. We got a lot of questions come through there. We were able to address them quickly and, you know, with good, solid, factual information.
So in terms of your competitors in the city, you know, here in Saskatoon, there's only a couple of co-ops that have just recently started offering curbside pickup. Yeah. And it's been a question I've actually had for a long time about the challenges co-op, that the cooperative retailing system must have in creating an online ordering, delivery or pickup service, because each co-op is unique. Yeah. In many ways, as much as you carry, you know, some of the same lines and brands and products that all come from the same place, there's a lot of local tailoring to your communities and local products. So how did you find that affecting you in Camrose itself? Because here in Saskatoon, I know the demand for online ordering and pickup was extraordinary. Right. So people were having to wait 2 weeks before they could go pick up their groceries.
So Co-op, we've been delivering groceries and doing parcel pickup since the beginning of time. It was done with a telephone. And so we just adapted, you know, we had already an email set up called wedeliver@wildrosecoop.ca. We already had that set up for in Camrose. We already had a delivery van. And then very quickly people said, can we do curbside pickup? And we had already a parking spot set up for it. So we were just doing it in a rudimentary, you know, way. We already had a wireless debit machine we were already using for some of these things, you know, when we were delivering for the seniors or whatever. So basically we just put more people on it. The phone kept ringing. We got our email address out there. We set up an online form to make it easier. They didn't, to be honest, I haven't got that feedback, but you didn't actually have to click through a whole bunch of shopping lists. You just wrote what you wanted and if you would accept a substitute. And then we just did it boots on the ground, manual, picked up the phone to get clarification, sent emails back. And we were doing 40 to 50 deliveries a day, and we were never more than a day and a half behind. And,
Wow.
and just did it the way we've always done it at Co-op since I was a cashier in 1981, right? So, and we didn't have to have a meeting on how to do it. The team just did it, and, you know, at all locations, and it's worked out. They did a great job. You know.
So you know, I have to admit that I don't know if our local co-ops here in Saskatoon have always done deliveries as well. It wasn't something I was aware of. So do you think that more of your members became aware of this service that you had?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because they would phone and say, do we do it? And we just kept on doing. And then we did more social media. We used that as our main link to remind people that we did it. And, you know, and then you had all the people that were working from home, right? They wanted the curbside pickup or didn't want to come in because maybe they were supposed to be self-quarantine or something like that. So they just jumped in and just continued to do that, right? So,
so what have you learned about your organization through this pandemic, and what kinds of changes do you think might come about as a result of your experiences that might be potentially permanent, long-term or permanent?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of it's going to depend on how much things open up, right? Like one of the things, like we were open, our hours and cameras were 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., for example, in our food store. And the 10 p.m. really was those hours when we moved to them were really popular. And a big part of it was it's a really active community, you know, in terms of soccer. Like June 15th is normally an all-night soccer tournament that they have here. It's huge. Dance is absolutely huge. Like dance festivals start in February and don't end till April, like, and just hundreds and hundreds of thousands, you know, practically thousands of people come through here for dance. So every night people are at hockey, dance, figure skating, ball, art class, you name it. And so the town is busy, the city's busy till after 9 o'clock. So shopping till 10 was a real, you know, people really appreciated being able to come in on their way home after curling or after whatever that was to get those things. So now that those activities aren't happening at night and people are out walking, riding their bikes and doing all those things, being open till 10 right now doesn't seem to be necessary, I guess. So, you know, that's what we're going to do is we'll take a look at those hours. The 7 a.m. became more popular during COVID. We didn't set aside any senior shopping hours because we didn't want to turn away maybe a healthcare worker that had to work all night and that was the only time they could get in to get their groceries or whatever. So we didn't want to turn anyone down. But the seniors, they knew when they could come in, when it was quieter, they came in to do their shopping then. So there's those things as being able to, we're kind of looking upon as a fresh start at how we do some of our business, right? What are some of the services we're providing that we're getting away without doing it right now and maybe didn't have that much return, and maybe we could better put those resources to our members somewhere else. So there's that aspect as well, right?
So are you in a position to be able to talk about what some of those areas might be?
There's nothing really I can really, you know, specifically say in under this type of forum. Like we've already made some of those changes already. You know, it's just extra services that maybe we got a little bit lazy and it was just easy to say, yes, we would do this instead of saying, you know, is there value in this? And is there value for the entire membership, or are we just serving a small handful, right? So, so it's an opportunity to make those changes. There's also the opportunity to really, you know, we're in the system's in the process of rolling out a digital presence for online shopping and click and collect. So, I mean, now we have the foundation. We have a whole group of people that are used to doing that with us now. We just got to roll them into a new system when it comes to us. And it's in Alberta. I think it's about its third or fourth store right now. So it'll be moving out even quicker now. So that's going to be maybe an area we can build on versus, you know, being a little bit late to the program. Now our customers are used to seeing it with us, and maybe they'll pick, you know, we can pick that up easier. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how about, you know, member communications and member outreach? It seems to me, when I was talking to Evan Taves from Winkler Co-op earlier today, he mentioned that he had a lot of people in the community who actually volunteer to help the local co-op restock shelves and do things like that. And he's in quite a rural area. So there's been an increase in a kind of community feeling around the co-op there. And it sounds to me like, especially in your rural location, that that's true for you as well. Do you see any kind of renewed relationship with members through this? And then my second question is, in terms of your AGM, I'm wondering if you've got thoughts about how to do that and how you're going to keep up member communications through this time.
So first question is, I think we had a lot of communication. We didn't have people being off that much, and we had enough people to handle the extra work. Although we did get calls for people to say, if you need help, I'll be there for you. We did definitely, and are still seeing, that shop at home seemed to have really kicked in with, our home and farm center and our food stores. Our home and farm centers in one of our small communities, and it was struggling along, and we were just trying to keep everything going. We had kind of rebuilt it with the whole different staff, and we've been doing a lot of work trying to keep it in that community, and we had full intentions of keeping it there, but it was struggling, as a lot of that industry had been over the last couple of years with different economic downturns in Alberta. Well, that really seemed to renew our relationship in that community. Now it's been busy. They've gotten to know some of our new people, and you can just tell that respect is there for them. And it's like shone a light on an area that we were concerned about, and really seems to have built a relationship that people are beginning to trust us back in those areas. Time and time again, in Flagstaff County, they do for the last month, they've been doing who's your heroes in our community. And every week there's 2 or 3 co-op employees. It's the petroleum truck drivers. It's Shirley on the till. It's Gary in the meat department. So, I mean, that whole recognition is, sometimes, the co-op is just always there. And maybe sometimes we just like, oh, it's just the co-op, becomes a bit of the attitude. And now it's like, hey, it's the co-op, and it's the people in the co-op. And that's who we are. The co-op's just a name. It's those people that we have working and living in those communities. So, and Killam was interesting because we were actually in the middle of a renovation there while we were doing this. And so between the construction going on and keeping the shelves full, it was a happening place out there. So,
wow. Yeah. So yeah, there has been a huge amount of renewed interest in the idea of shopping locally and supporting local businesses. That would be a big advantage for the co-op right now, it seemed to me.
Yes. Yeah, it's really, that whole, farm to fork and being local. And one of the things that really we were able to, put our heads together when we had to make quick decisions and be nimble. And sometimes the GMs, we think, oh, we don't change quick enough in co-op land. We can think of it from a CRS point of view or whatever. Are we changing fast enough? One of the things that Scott Band always talks about is relevancy. What are we doing to be relevant? Keeping the relevancy going. And, it's something I talk about a lot, but, we are relevant. That's, to me, that came out of it. We are relevant and we are needed. And look how nimble we are. Like, I didn't have to go to Toronto and say, or Saskatoon or Vancouver to say, I need to put Lexicon shields on my tills. On a Saturday morning, I phoned my ops manager. I said, let's get hold of George, the local glass guy, and let's get this done. And by Tuesday, they were underway. Like, that's the kind of thing we are able to do. And partnering with local businesses and, to get some of this stuff done was just a hand in glove. It was a hand in glove relationship, So we get to partner with a local business, or if the mayor's having problems, they get to talk to me. They don't have, you're not phoning a CEO somewhere in a different city, in a different part of the country, or not in Canada. He's talking to me and we're able to work together. That's what co-op brings to the table, because his taxpayers are my members. We care about those people from the same perspective. So.
That's an excellent point. So we don't know how long the pandemic is going to go on and what kinds of hills and valleys we're going to experience over the next many months or years even. So I'm wondering if you have some concerns, what concerns or fears you might have for the co-ops over this time, whether it's your own or just co-ops in general or the CRS or anything like that.
I think to me, when I think about that question, it's about becomes economic, really, and we will be fine because we are diversified, and we're not all our eggs in one basket. We've got that agriculture aspect. So as long as we don't have some major crop or agriculture event that could occur, co-ops will be fine as a whole. Never thought we would be considered an essential service, even though we always thought we were. Didn't really think, that it would be. Just an interesting anecdote. I was upstairs, my admin office is in a basement or down on a lower level. So I was upstairs on the food floor shortly into this, and a couple of my cashiers were, "Carol, did you hear?" I said, what did you hear? The Prime Minister was talking about us. About us? Yeah, cashiers. They were talking about grocery. He was, like, it was interesting. Like, it just changed the perspective about those positions. But I think from the future and where this goes, it's about what happens in our economies, right? Are all the trucks going to be back on the road? Are the cars going to be back on the road? Are people going to go back to work? Are the schools going to go back? What does that mean? Also, when you talk about from the community responsibility piece, the governments are cutting back. They've got a lot of debt. What's going to happen to, we already do lots of work with schools and libraries and daycares. And when funding is cut for those things, where do they go? They go to local business. Who's the big local business in many of our communities? It's the co-op. Well, we can't fill in all those gaps. Mm-hmm. So how do we still provide some of those things to the community and still, have a sustainable business? So that's a concern that I have there. But the disposable income is going to be impacted substantially, I think. There's only so long that people can work from home too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so. Coming out of this, what are your hopes then for your stores, for your services? What are your hopes for the CRS? What kinds of new things might you want to see, whether it's practices or ways of operating or even policies that might benefit the co-op? Like what do you hope to see come out of this?
Well, I think just a continued commitment to our local communities, and that commitment to local, and being able to be efficient, and I think that's a key component of our success, and it has been. Killam Co-op, when it was Killam Co-op, was one of the founders of the Alberta Wholesale Cooperatives. So Cedric Co-op was since 1948. So we have a long history in rural Alberta, or the prairies, of being around. Like, some have made it and some haven't. We know that history. However, I think there's still that opportunity. We got to remain relevant, and I think that's even key, is getting relevant quicker. And if there's anything that I've seen drive, it's like online isn't everything. However, in today's age, it's that quickness of information and being able to have it and know it quickly that we all expect. So I think that will drive through that. That's my hope, is that will just enhance our bricks and mortar presence. Because, you can't, if we can make sure that those services are provided to those communities with our bricks and mortar, and our staff are making sure, and they're empathetic, is way more than you're going to get from, online Amazon. You don't get empathy from online Amazon, but you can get it from your local co-op if you need some help and you need a solution. So whether it's, making sure that you get your canola seed or the fuel in your tank, or, if you need a special cut of meat, like, that's what you can get from us. So we can my hope is that we can get that digital piece worked out from an omni, and then we can be that omni-channel local farm to fork resource for our communities. So.
That's great. Wow. So anything else you wanted to add? This has been fascinating. I'm so interested in this this renewed interest in the local and what that means for co-ops. I think there's a lot of potential there, and hopefully there's a way to continue kind of reinforcing that that commitment in terms of communications and marketing campaigns and things like that too.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to add to the AGM piece you asked me about.
Oh, yes.
We had our AGM on March the 4th or 3rd. So, I mean, we beat it. So,
wow, you're lucky.
So I didn't have to deal with any of that virtual stuff that way. But the communication that we've been doing has all been through social media that way. But I think the local side of everything is that we have to keep the focus on that. And we just send out our equity checks, you know, right in the middle of all this. Our equity checks went out for May 1st, you know, so $2 million in profit sharing went out to the communities in a time in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of an economic downturn. That's something to be proud of, you know. So we'll see what 2021 brings throughout all this, but I mean, just to reinforce that where those profits go, that's what happened there.
Yeah, that's so important. So I want to thank you for your time. We've been talking for half an hour now, and I know that you're extremely busy. So Carol Rollheiser from Wildrose Co-op, thank you so much. I wish you the best to all your employees too, and your communities.
Thanks, Jennifer. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.